Lots of exciting stuff going on. We've got X-class solar flaring. We've got coronal mass ejection activity. And we've got, of course, as you may have come to expect, the most detailed imagery anywhere on the internet of the closest star. And thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name of news. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. I'm your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smasher Mash, and let's get into the daily space weather. We did have an X-class flare. Great depiction of that here. There was a coronal mass ejection associated with it. We'll tell you the trajectory soon. A little bit later in the video, the likelihood of additional coronal mass ejections and large flares is nearly 100%. Let's show SDO yesterday plus today. We've got new sunspots forming in the southern hemisphere also. So we may have as many as 3 more named sunspot groups, 2 down here, while one down here needs a name. Actually, 2 down here need a name. Right there and right there. And also this group north of sunspot 3112 may get a name as well. Check out the colorized magnetogram for some additional detail on that. That's yesterday plus today from SDO. Let's take a brief look at volcanoes, as we're not only interested in solar activity, we're also interested in earthly activity. So Nishino-shima continues to explode and produce a 7,000-foot ash plume. Sakurajima, 8,000-foot ash plume. Sorik Merapi in Sumatra. I never heard of it, but it turns out it's producing a bunch of volcano-tectonic earthquakes since the 29th of September, but no visually elevated activity there. So there may be some eruptions expected there. Don't approach the main crater from close proximity, and don't pole vault the caldera. Popocatépetl, mild sporadic emissions of ash there as it mildly explodes in central Mexico. Down in Guatemala, Fuego exploding, flight level 150. Nevado del Ruiz exploding in Colombia, flight level 210. Sangay exploding in Ecuador, flight level 200. 15,000-foot ash plume from Revenador in that same nation as Revenador explodes, flight level 150. And we're unable to detect whether or not Sabancaya or Nevados de Chilean are erupting. Don't pole vault those calderae either. Next, seismic activity. No major quakes to report here. I think the largest has been a 5.7. There were a few 5.7s, like this 5.7 at the South Sandwich Islands. And what else do we got? Requianes Ridge, at least one quake there. A 5.6 at Mexico. And let us know if we missed anything in the comments. Thanks to everybody who's left comments. Lo the many years. And thanks to our new subscribers and viewers over on YouTube. 5.5 at the South Sandwich Islands, a 5.0 at the Philippines, and let's move on back to space. So here's the past 24 hours in ionized helium, 304 angstroms from SDO. Again, huge number of filaments. You can see a great filament down here. Part of that released, part of that remains intact, I believe. And as forecasted, we saw an uptick in the radio flux. So the 10.7 centimeter radio flux now up to 150 solar flux units. And there's the 1 year, 154 solar flux units for the 10.7 centimeter radio flux. And you can see those higher highs and higher lows happening as solar cycle 25 continues to ramp up. You can also expect to see an increase in the sunspot number today, as again we have new sunspots. We'll show close-ups of that here momentarily. We've also got geomagnetic storm conditions forecasted for tomorrow, Tuesday, October 4th. KP6 forecasted for early in the day. KP5 forecasted for late in the day today by NOAA. A combination of coronal high-speed streams and coronal mass ejections expected by NOAA. I'm not so sure about the CMEs. Coronal hole high-speed streams showing up a little late here. We'll keep an eye on it. Let's take a look at Earth's magnetic moment from space here for the past 4 hours. Let me bring that back. And we're seeing a very low-density solar wind, a very diffuse set of readings here showing up from the ACE and Discover, which is being modeled as a very low-pressure plasma environment there. The units you're seeing there is nanopascals magnetohydrodynamic pressure. So surprisingly low solar wind density. We've been seeing this for a few days, surprisingly. We'll get to the real-time solar wind data here in a moment. First, the ground magnetic perturbations. We did see a brief period of geomagnetic storm conditions late in the day yesterday, universal time. That's the last 4 hours in nanotesla. Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. So there's that brief period of geomagnetic storm conditions. It did get to a KP5, a minor geomagnetic storm, and then it quickly subsided. So aurora watchers have been largely disappointed over the weekend. And here's a real-time solar wind, and again you can see how diffuse this solar wind is, showing up as less than 1 proton per cubic centimeter. Those readings are from the ACE and Discover. So maybe they're right, I don't know, but that's the current data output there. 0.7 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density. 0.7 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed here a little bit elevated. Looks a little like a coronal hole high-speed stream at 486 kilometers per second. GOES magnetometer showing some spiky sawtooth readings there for the past about 10 hours. Let's take a look at the heliospheric current sheet. There may be a South Pole current sheet headed this way. Let's see if it pops through. We've got some very powerful sunspots in the northern hemisphere at the moment. Earth remaining in a North Pole current sheet shown there in green. We are waiting for the North Solar Polar Field to leave the North Heliographic Pole, by the way. It's still mostly fixated at the North Pole. Well, a large part of it is fixated at the North Pole. And let's take a look at the line of sight field plot, which stopped playing also because reasons. So there's that, and you can see most of the North Solar Polar Field there oriented right toward the Earth at the moment. You can see it also in lots of coronal holes. So here's your coronal hole line of sight plot. And a few South Pole coronal holes here showing up here in the northeastern limb. Those probably not visible yet as there are sunspots up there and the corona is very bumpy. So up here we can expect to see some South Pole coronal holes in a couple of days. At the moment, North Pole coronal holes. That's the last 24 hours in 211 angstroms from SDO. And let's move to sunspots. You can also see that X-flare happening there. And some plasma reorientation happening around the same time. So here's our sunspot view. And again, expecting some new sunspots to be named. 3114 has largely evaporated, but we'll have 3115 and 3116 and maybe even 3117 up here north of 3112. At least 2 new named groups should happen today. Likelihood of major flares remains extremely high. And by the way, Sunspot 3110 has actually grown a bit. So the same sunspot that produced that X-class flare has gotten bigger. You should be able to see it in our SDO magnetogram. A little bit of growth on the leading portion of that sunspot group. As it approaches the limit, becomes more and more likely to produce major flares. And again, at least 2 new groups forming here in the southern hemisphere. So lots of exciting stuff going on here. As Solar Cycle 25 continues to ramp up, well ahead of schedule and well ahead of most people's expectations. So we only saw a minor proton event there, no major relativistic particles striking Earth from that X-flare. And there's the X-flare. The peak flux was around 2020 Universal Time yesterday on October 2nd. And we've got a large flare happening as we stream the video. So we paused this right here at the moment of that large flare. Let's refresh that. So this is 131 angstroms, one of the best wavelengths to view solar flares. I'll give this the slow rock back. And let's take a look at some close-ups here. This is a composite 304 plus 131 angstroms. There was a CME associated with that. Here's 304 angstroms by itself in the extreme close-up. And here's the same perspective in 94 angstroms. That's the last 24 hours of Sunspot 3110. We'll let that play through one more time. And next we're viewing a star chart. We're always interested in what's going on overhead. So let's shift gears here a little bit and talk about what you'll see in the morning. If you've got a low horizon, you may see Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter all at the same time in the morning sky. This is the current sky over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. From in-the-sky.org. Deneb just setting down there in the north-northwest. And we're going to show a solar system forecast, but first, take a moment to press like and subscribe. Once again, thanks to our new subscribers over on YouTube. If you're watching on BitChute, make sure you view on YouTube, as you'll see content on YouTube you will not see on BitChute. Also, I would note yesterday's thumbnail. Did you see yesterday's thumbnail? Yeah, I'll bet you did. You see the way it says, expect X-class flares? Did you see that? That's called a forecast. If you'd like to support the content, become a member of the Smash Team. There's a bronze level, which is free. There's a silver level, which is $2.99 a month. There's a gold level, which is $9.99 a month. There's even a gold annual paid-up subscription, which is actually the best value. It's equivalent to getting 4 months at no cost. There's complimentary merch, as well as a legit free month. And we put up some information yesterday for only Gold Smash Team members. Click posts after you log in to see what's visible at your level. SmashOmash.com/SmashTeam. Thanks to all of you executive producers helping to keep these videos free, publicly visible, and in existence. Today's featured product is, and our products, by the way, if you click the links on the homepage or below the video to the Redbubble shop, you'll find the products listed in order of best selling. Today's featured product is an effort to make Earth not suck again, make America not suck again, and also to Universum Liberate. We've re-released it. Today's featured product is not the Fauci face of evil bath mat. No. Today's featured product is Smasher Price, my first pandemic. And by the way, congratulations on surviving a global pandemic so far. Can't wear the same shirt 2 days in a row, folks, although I think I might have yesterday. But in any case, what do you think of the response to the pandemic? What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Get yourself a souvenir. Congratulate your friends and foes for surviving a global pandemic so far with the Mask the World Smasher Price My First Pandemic products. It comes in socks, it comes in scarves, it comes in clocks, it comes in leggings. You can get pillows, bath mats, phone cases, laptop skins, and full-size graphic tees. It even comes on a hat. Once again, congratulations on surviving a global pandemic. You can find links on the homepage of the Smasho merch shop. And welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Who knew we would end up with the forecasting abilities that we have? But that's what happens when you immerse yourself in the data, folks. A lot of times when you enter the science rabbit hole, you find out you've got answers to questions not asked. Last but not least, one more link you can find at the Smashomash homepage at smashomash.com is a link to SureMed. SureMed. It does give you access to insurance products. However, the base membership is not insurance. It's an association membership with a nonprofit organization known as the American Better Health Organization, focused on improving the health of its members. So check it out if you want to fill in some of the gaps. Get all kinds of discounts and services like doctors by phone, counselors by phone, even virtual veterinarians. Save on dental, vision, pharmacy, vitamins, labs, and more. With a membership to SureMed, just the doctors by phone and virtual veterinarians is worth $20 a month. Improve your health with a SureMed membership. Links below the video and on the homepage at smashomash.com. And here is your solar system forecast. Keep in mind this diagram is not to scale. Here's your 1 week forecast of what shall be going on in the solar system. And there's where things will be in 1 week on 10/10. We will have a gibbous waning moon. Next, looking at some coronagraphs. Let's refresh that. And we've got some spectacular CMEs happening there. They do not appear to be earthly directed. That's yesterday's imagery, by the way. And let's also show today. That one could have some Earth-facing components. If so, they'll be pretty minor. Most of that is certainly off to the south. And we would show you more data from Stereo A and so on, but unfortunately, that data not available. So we're only seeing yesterday's data there, unfortunately. Here's the last 24 hours in composite. STO 304 angstroms plus the SOHO LASCO C2 and SOHO LASCO C3. So that's CME off to the southeast. I'm not so sure that will be earthly directed. I don't think it is, actually. Based on this data, you can see there's not really any ejecta on the northwest side at the same time. So I'm sort of suspecting that that will miss Earth as well. Enjoy the show. It doesn't look like it's going to cause very much effects at all, if any, here on Earth. Likelihood of additional coronal mass ejections remains at nearly 100%, as we've got huge filaments. So that last CME was actually this filament here. It is now off into the greater solar system, but we still have a ton of filaments in the southern hemisphere, also in the northeast. Lots of filaments there still available to eject at any moment when those magnetic fields change and gravity is defied. So here is the GOES 16 SUVI for the past 2.5 hours or so. And we'll be streaming this on the Twitch channel later today, twitch.tv/smashomash. We'll stream it all day long. especially with the likelihood of additional solar flares, large ones, and additional CMEs, coronal mass ejections. Here's the last 24 in the house favorite wavelength, 171 angstroms. You can see some reverberation associated with that solar flare happening. We'll let that play through one more time. And right there, you can see some transverse waves emanating from that flare region, sunspot 3110. Next, move into bonus features. We've got some satellite charging hazards here over Mexico, about to move into the Central Pacific Ocean. Those surface charging hazards caused by electrons building up on the surface of satellites. And there's the GOES electron flux, measured by the GOES 16 and GOES 17 satellites from their geosynchronous near equatorial orbits. There is the the relativistic electron forecast model by NOAA. No arguments there. The green boxes are the forecast, the yellow diamonds are the observation. Here's the one-year chart to put it in context from Solon.info. And let's take a look at the F ionosphere layer, which is showing some massive anomalies. So the F layer located at about 300 kilometers of altitude is what we're showing here. This is the vibrational frequency. And it's looking pretty wobbly here. A lot of modulation going on in the ionosphere at the moment. You can see those huge high-frequency anomalies happening there, making it up to 14 megahertz. Large portions of the planet. It may be more obvious to you new viewers in the anomalygram, which we will show next. So here's the anomalygram. That's anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. You can see some wild swings around Antarctica, actually. Some high-frequency and low-frequency anomalies happening down there around the South Pole. Quite a few significant anomalies occurring all around the world. Again, ionosphere looking a little wobbly at the moment. Here's the latest image, 10:15 Universal Time ionogram, 10:15 Universal Time anomalygram. We're also going to show the total electron content forecast. This is the free electrons between your GPS satellite and your GPS handset. GPS satellites are located right on the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt. They must communicate through the outer plasmasphere, the inner Van Allen belt, the inner plasmasphere, and the ionosphere, and those free electrons can cause signal refraction, which is highest around where you see those red blobs. That's literally the electron density, the total electron content forecast. Things still looking mostly orderly here. And we've got a very diffuse coronal hole high-speed stream at the moment. And let's move on. We don't want the video to be too long. So here's your latest solar intensitygram and latest magnetogram. Here's a sunspot that's produced all the exciting flaring. It has grown since yesterday, and as it approaches the limit, becomes actually more likely to produce major flares, which might be telling us something about what stars are made of. And yowzers! Look at this incredible sunspot group. That is Beta Gamma Delta class all day. Look at how many umbrae there. I think that's the most umbrae of any sunspot group of solar cycle 25. That is just spectacular. I still expect this to be named a new group, and we're expecting these two groups down here to be named today also. Likelihood of additional X-class flares, very high. Likelihood of additional coronal mass ejections, nearly 100%. And let's show one more series of images. Let's actually view Iron Star here. 3 species of ionized iron. That's 335, 193, and 94 angstroms. That is the data from yesterday plus today, as it's time to move to meteorology. We've been throwing in the meteorology segments because over a decade ago I realized that forecasting the weather is far too easy. And that's part of the reason why we're doing space weather, because you gotta keep it challenging, folks. You gotta keep it challenging. So the first thing we're looking at here in terms of meteorology is Saharan dust, making it across the Atlantic Ocean here, just approaching the eastern Caribbean islands, as those areas do get fertilized by that Saharan dust. And let's go to our regularly scheduled wind maps. Here is the surface wind environment for the eastern world. Now that we've shown that, here are the jet streams, the 250 hectopascal wind signal. Here are the jet streams of the west. And shout out to our viewers from all around the planet. Upper level low here in the central Atlantic. How about the surface winds? There you go. Surface winds of the central world. And last but not least, jet streams of the central world. Looking like that. A strong anticyclone over southern Africa. You can see that upper level counterclockwise rotation, an indication of a high pressure zone in the south of the African continent. Here's what's going on in terms of clouds and fog over the Americas. It's the 3.9 nanometer infrared radiation satellite. As the sun rises over the eastern portion of the map. Here's your weather.gov map. If your county's lit, click your county. We've got some frost advisories and some hard freeze warnings there in a large portion of Vermont, portions of New Hampshire, New York, and Maine. Also coastal flood advisories in New Jersey, and some gale warnings there around the East Coast. Also Arizona expecting some flooding. Again, if your county is lit, head to weather.gov and click your county. Here come some forecasts. This is the GFS model for pressure and precipitation for the next 72 hours. Colorado expecting some snow, as well as portions of central Canada. As that low taffers around, it's a lingering low there. It's a loitering, lingering low hanging out around Virginia Beach. Here is your total accumulated precipitation forecast. That's the same model, the GFS, for the next 72 hours. Precipitation totals shown here in inches, and some heavy rains are expected for southern Jersey, most of Delaware, and large portions of coastal Maryland. Looking like 4 additional inches of rain coming. And last but not least, here's temperature anomaly, since we saw some frost and freeze warnings. It's the same model, the GFS, the same time frame, 72 hours. This is temperature anomaly in degrees Celsius. Next, here's a pressure map. Let's see how this pressure is going to play out for the next 3 days. This is the European model, by the way. You can see that pressure expected to intensify and then move toward New Jersey, and then go around in a circle past Maryland and Virginia Beach. And it's expected to be up by Nova Scotia by Thursday. That's the European forecast for pressure from windy.com. Next, our NASA GOES lightning mapper. There's what's going on in terms of lightning in the past about 10 hours. And let's go to a real-time lightning map. Do we have any terrestrial strikes? Indeed we do, in southwestern Utah. Hey, Cedar City. There's thunder rolling in. Some active cells happening there. Great real-time lightning detection from lightningmaps.org. Next, your U.S. Doppler radar map will briefly zoom out here to show all 50 states. Some showers continuing there in southern Alaska. We'll focus on the lower 48, as that low is someplace around the Delaware Bay, I think. Should be more obvious here. Yeah, it looks like the low is right over the Delaware Bay at the moment. That's your shortwave radiation. Here is water vapor. Actually, I think the low is... yeah, the low is right around Philly. Anyway, here's your recap. The U.S. Doppler radar. The shortwave radiation showing clouds and fog. It's still dark in eastern Pennsylvania. And there is the water vapor map. Hopefully that clears things up. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Thanks for leaving a comment, Tinman1057. Good morning to you as well. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.